Yeah, so we're apparently Trump said go get your own oil from the Strait of Hormuz. So that's what this one's going to be. This is the big beautiful channel BBC. And yeah, they're going to be just going over, I guess, Trump's most recent comments related to the Strait of Hormuz and how we might just be, we might just be declaring victory and leaving at this point is kind of what it feels like. Or like maybe that's what he's like. I always say Trump is the king of the pump fakes, man. So he might this might be another one of those. It might be one of those like we're just gonna leave and declare victory, but then in reality he's planning to just like do a ground invasion or whatever. So who knows really what's going on. But let's see if CNN, or it's not CNN, BBC has anything to say about it.
President Trump has hit out at the UK and other countries, telling them to go get their own oil from the Strait of Hormuz. In a post of Truth Social, he said all of those countries that can't get jet fuel because of the Strait of Hormuz, like the UK, which refused to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, I have a suggestion for you. Number one, buy from the US. We have plenty. Number two, build up some delayed courage, go to the strait and just take it. You'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us.
Whoa, what just a complete admission, right, by our president that we are not capable of protecting international waters anymore. That was the entire post-World War paradigm, right? Is that America was going to be there with its, trillion-dollar defense budget to be able to protect all of the international waterways. And and now he's just out here saying, like, the quiet part out loud is that we're not able to open up the Strait of Hormuz. So why don't you guys just open it up yourself? Which is kind of hilarious, to be honest. But it is also just a straight up admission that we, like the old order that came, like the United States centered order that came after the Cold War and stuff. Like that shit's over with, man. That shit, and everybody can see it now. This is the most obvious example of it, because this was literally the whole deal, is that America will protect all of the international trade and international waters and stuff. And you guys can just, as long as you're good little vassals to America, you guys can reap some of the bounty of American empire. So, but now, it's like, we can't do it, so I guess you guys got to do it if you want to still get your oil from there, which is, hey.
Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done. Go get your own oil. Well, that statement from President Trump comes as Buckingham Palace has confirmed that the King's state visit to the US is to go ahead next month as planned. Charles and Queen Camilla's long-expected historic trip to see President Trump will take place in late April, despite calls for it to be postponed because of the ongoing conflict.
Does anybody ever feel like this is real, like old world shit? Like, where, I don't know, sometimes I'm just like, we do live in modernity, right? Like, I understand that this is all just like a show and a way to, like, in a sense, this is all just a show for the people or whatever. But anytime I see things like this, I always think like we're living in like Bridgerton or something, where you got to send your elite feudal lords from like to go talk with the other ones and like have fancy dinners and stuff. Like it just feels like essentially like nobility, even though we're technically supposed to not be a monarchy or whatever. But it might just be the aesthetics, and especially because he's, the king or whatever. But
conflict in the Middle East. Well, we have just been watching Pete Hegseth, US Defense Secretary, and he has reiterated Mr. Trump's message, saying, I think the president was clear this morning in his truth that there are countries around the world who ought to be prepared to step up on this critical waterway as well. And speaking just a short time ago, he said and claimed that the US is closer than ever to winning the war against Iran, and that the upcoming days will be decisive.
Well, we already watched this, so I'm going to skip ahead to whatever their analysis is.
A short time ago at the Pentagon. Let's take you live to Washington. We can join our correspondent there, Ione Wells. So much to unpick, Ione, as President Trump once again criticising European allies for not getting involved in the conflict and telling them to go to the Strait of Hormuz and just take the energy and the oil that they need.
Yeah. Why don't you just go over there and drill it yourself, people? Why don't you just go into the Strait of Hormuz and start drilling your own oil? Like, what? You know, you could just do that instead. It's not oh, you're afraid Iran's going to bomb you? Like, I don't know. It's just so funny to me.
Did we hear from Pete Hegseth on Operation Epic Fury about what is happening in the Strait of Hormuz at the moment?
Well, certainly, I think he repeated some of the same criticisms that we heard from Donald Trump, essentially, in particular, taking aim at the Royal Navy. I think a reference there to the United Kingdom's Navy, accusing them of not essentially getting involved to help out. Now, clearly, the US is looking for a solution because this is choking the global oil industry. We've seen just today in the US, average gas prices hit $4. So this is starting to be felt around the country, but around the world too, in terms of the financial markets sliding as well, all of which are putting pressure on the US administration to try and find a kind of solution. Now, at the moment, Iran is controlling traffic in and out of the Strait of Hormuz and is charging any vessels millions of dollars if they want to get in or out. Now, that is something which the US wants to negotiate away, essentially. What's interesting, though, is we just heard there from Hegseth talking about Iran knowing the terms of the deal that the US wants to strike. Now, the US, as far as we know, had previously set out various things it was willing to negotiate on. This included, for example, essentially the end of Iran's any ambitions of a nuclear program, a severe reduction in its missile capacity, as well. Iran, though, has previously said that it wants, for example, negotiations around having sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz in the way that it has at the moment, or wants to negotiate around compensation for the damage that has been done during this war. So it does seem that we are hearing these increasingly contradictory statements about what...
Yeah, because so Iran's statements are much more reasonable. Because they're just asking for the things, well, aside from the reparations or whatever, they're just asking for the things that they've already accomplished militarily, right? So it's like when Russia asks for, like, oh, we want to have sovereignty over all of these like Ukrainian cities that are behind the lines of battle or whatever, and and they're like, well, because they essentially already have that or whatever, and there's nothing Ukraine can do to stop that. It's like not that unrealistic of a demand, right? So when Iran says, oh, we want sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz, they already have that. Like, they've achieved that through like military means, right? And then when they say, oh, we want to be like setting up tolls and stuff for the ships passing through it, they're like, well, they're already doing that. They've achieved that through military means. I forgot what some of the other stuff that they wanted was, but there were other things that they've also gotten militarily. But in terms of the reparations, like, yeah, you bombed the shit out of them. Like, you should pay them reparations for all of that. Like, to be honest, but I think that the problem for Iran is that no matter what, if they get all of these things, it's going to look so bad for America. Like, it's going to be so embarrassing to America, like, to accept them, that even though those are the things that they, have like the strategic bargaining power to ask for. And America should probably just accept them because of the situations on the ground or whatever, because they've already essentially gotten most of them, except maybe the reparations. Maybe they can negotiate on that or something. America might negotiate on that. But if America accepted any of that, it would basically just be a complete admission of failure, which is probably the main reason that they wouldn't. Like, they're not going to not accept it because they can't do those things or whatever. They're going to not accept it because it would be an admission of failure. So they're looking for a way to not have it look like a failure, which I just don't know if there's going to be a way to do that at this point.
Potential.
Because part of Iran's idea for deterrence is that you need to make it look like a failure to America. You need the entire world to recognize it as a failure by America to accomplish their strategic objectives. So, yeah, I think that, like I said, Iran's the things that they're asking for are completely and totally reasonable at this point in time. And what America is asking for is like pie in the sky, or really what America is asking for is what Iran offered them before America started the war, back when America had a lot more negotiating power at that point in time. But after they started the war, their bargaining position has just gone down, down, down. And now they have like they really like not very much when it comes to this stuff. The only thing they have bargaining power, I would say, is over the amount of reparations, because that's something that Iran hasn't achieved completely, like militarily.
Terms of negotiations may be, but also whether talks are actually even happening at the moment. Pete Hegseth doubled down on the US's claim that talks are ongoing, that there's constructive progress underway. But all that we've heard out of Iran so far suggests that there aren't even any formal negotiations that have started so far.
What about the timing of the conflict, Amy? Because Pete Hegseth said different things about what victory could look like. And he said, as long as this ends on the terms that the US has laid out. How did he deal with some of those questions about how long the conflict could go on for?
Yeah, I mean, they have repeatedly talked about a possible timeline of 4 to 6 weeks or so, but also set out.
We're at about the 4-week mark, FYI. So they got to wrap it up in a couple weeks.
These objectives that they want to meet in order to consider, from the US's perspective, this war over, which have been, as I say, a kind of complete prevention of Iran ever having a nuclear weapon in future, of essentially getting rid of its naval capacity, of severely reducing its ability to fire missiles, ballistic missiles.
See, the Navy thing, that's a reasonable thing for America to ask for, because that is something that they accomplish militarily. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you have already done that, then that is like something that you can, that is very like a somewhat reasonable ask. Now, I've already said before that Iran was not known for their Navy. And also we are known for blowing up civilian ships. So, take everything America says there with a grain of salt of destroying their Navy or whatever. But
SARS as well. But I think where the terms of this have slightly changed is that initially I think the US was clearly angling for regime change, something which Pete Hegseth says has happened. Although, as far as we're aware, it is, the Iranian regime is still in power there. We don't exactly know who it is that the US says it is negotiating with. And I think one thing that isn't very clear at the moment, as I say, is that on the one hand, you have the US saying that it is carrying out these talks, that if Iran makes a deal, that will be the way for this to end. But as far as we know, Iran says that those talks aren't ongoing. And I think Iran will want to be clear that it is not prepared to necessarily just come to the negotiating table only on the US's terms, not least because I think Iran is also skeptical of the fact that in the past, when there have been negotiations ongoing over reaching some kind of nuclear deal, notably last June, for example, Iran then did come under attack by the US and Israel. So I think there is sort of skepticism from the Iranian side about whether talks will be a front for further military attacks, for example. At the moment, we are hearing this sort of two-pronged approach from both Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump, which is on the one hand, we want a deal. We want Iran to come to the negotiating table. They know what the terms are that we've set in front of them. On the other hand, though, this threat that if they don't, this conflict will escalate further. And we've heard a taste of what that might look like from Pete Hegseth, but also from Donald.
I mean, that's dude, they say this every time. They say it literally every time. And the only escalation further that exists is like boots on the ground. And so if they aren't ready to commit to that, like to a full-fledged occupation of Iran, then there is no more escalation you can do. And so we will just live in a state of perpetual, like, I guess, bombing them and them bombing everybody else for the next 10, 20 years or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, just completely destroying the global economy in the process. Like, I don't know, man. It's like, The problem is that they are so one-track minded of escalate to de-escalate, right? That's what they always say all the time. And it's so fucking annoying. Have you ever tried de-escalate to de-escalate? You know what I'm saying? Like, and I do have a feeling that they will end up doing boots on the ground, but you know, we'll see. That Trump he did surprise me this past weekend because I was pretty sure he was going to do it last Friday. And then I think that, he said, let's hold off on it or something, if I had to guess. But all of those troops are over there and they're going to be used, I think. So like, to me, it feels like an inevitability at this point, but maybe they just needed some more time to prepare whatever they need to prepare for their ground invasion. But yeah, who knows? Anyway, yeah, you other countries, go open up the Strait of Hormuz yourselves. We are donezo. We are not going to help you guys. That's what Trump said. So